Hello lovelies, I'm terrible at pimping my stuff, so here I am, pimping my stuff. Please like, subscribe, and most important of all, share, so that people can discover me and all the wonders that I offer. Maps. Now, unless you frequent the darker corners and recesses of the internet, or unless you get fights picked with you on Twitter, as I do, then a map to you is probably one of those quaint big folding things that couples used to get in arguments over in old movies pre-2000, or perhaps it's a piece of parchment with a big X on it that a bunch of kids use to track down some treasure. Or maybe it's that thing that gets you rear-ended at the traffic lights as you desperately try to get back out of Google Street View. But in those dark corners of the internet, it has an entirely different and darker meaning. Minor attracted person. Now, fortunately for us, this doesn't apply in all instances. After all, you're extremely unlikely to leave the British educational system without a schoolgirl fetish, and there are always those instances when it's, oh my god, I can't believe I was perving on her, she's 14, I must scrub everything. Mistakes happen, but maps are people who are genuinely, properly, perversely attracted to prepubescent children. And MAP is just the latest attempt to try and sanitize the language to make it more acceptable to put it in those kind of scientific or pseudo-scientific terms that we find elsewhere in human sexuality, you know, because it sounds a hell of a lot better than nonce or childfucker. But this isn't the first time they've tried that. Previously there has of course been NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, which tried to shoehorn in on the whole LGBT thing in the same way that MAPS are trying to add paedophile to it. Then of course there's the cradle sex rights group Babelstot. It's easy to understand why child rapists are so hated. The clue's in the name, really. It's also hard to understand why anyone even slightly adjacent to child rapists is hated. But there is a degree of hysteria around this. It is an accusation that gets thrown about a lot, particularly from the right. And these things haven't exactly been helped with the whole Jeffrey Epstein situation or anything else around that. But it does get out of hand. There are semi-apocryphal stories of paediatricians being targeted because people can't read correctly, and if you want to see a spoof on the levels to which this kind of hysteria can get, then watch Brass Eye's Paedogeddon special, which can be found illegally uploaded all over the place. It's hard for us to imagine a worse crime than violating the innocence, the very childhood of a child. Well, I suppose the child rapist could be wearing a kitten as a condom, and that would be... It's hard to think of practical ways in which that there is a worse crime than violating the innocence of a child. But there is nuance here, and it takes someone particularly foolhardy or daring to even consider the nuance.
The topic of pedophilia.
Oh, yeah.
Pedophilia. You support that? You believe that's okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yikes. And for the record, neither side in that discussion demonstrated any nuance whatsoever. Jesse Lee Peterson is not exactly a nuanced thinker, neither is Amos Yee, and it's always okay versus anything even slightly relating to it is terrible. These are not nuanced positions, but this shows part of the problem. If you accept maps, if you try to have the discussion, it's seen as somehow enabling the paedophile side of the equation, and the right-wing side of the equation tends to conflate paedophiles with the LGBTQ community anyway. So paedophiles trying to add P to the whole letterbox there, it's problematic. Amos Yee, God, only someone that thoroughly stupid could get internet famous for criticising the Singaporean government and Christianity and Islam, get asylum in the United States, and then crank up the dial so high that even Americans find what he's saying unacceptable. He had to chase that extreme in whatever environment he was in, which suggests he's just a kind of congenital troll, I suppose. But it did expose some hypocrisy in people, in the skeptical community, in the free-thinking community, in the atheist community, where we pride ourselves on our ability to have conversations about anything and everything, except that. Even to debunk him or to push back on him, there was precious little acceptance of that. And even when people did interview him, they tended to softball him a little bit, in my not so humble opinion. But the reaction to Yee was massively overdone. The censorship of Yee was probably overdone, and as usual, the solution to speech tends to be more speech. But it is kind of archetypical of the kind of overreaction and stark terror that surrounds not paedophilia, but things that people think are associated with it, like young drag queens, or drag queen story time, or pride events, or lolly art from our friends in the Far East, or underage but physically mature anime characters, or overage but physically mature anime characters, or even adult aged up art of underage anime characters, or even the DDLG sub-community in the BDSM community, that is the daddy little girl, where people play up their childish neotenous characteristics for a sexual thrill, but that doesn't suggest for a moment that they would actually be attracted to children. But all of these things, all of these people, all of these forms of expression and art all get caught up in the hysteria around it and the distinct overreactions that occur to it. Because in many ways it is still the irredeemable sin, the irredeemable thing to even talk about, or to even suggest that there might be any nuance at all to it. Did you find that even mildly titillating? If so, then sorry, you're a pedo. There's nothing I can do about it. Those are the rules. That's just how it occurs. Even if the girl's of age and consenting and everything. Sorry, there's nothing I can do. It's just the way that it is. In essence, there's nothing wrong with having dark or nasty desires, as long as everyone's consenting and capable of consenting. And this is where the problem comes in. Of course, kids can't meaningfully consent any more than animals can. And there is danger in accepting this, in making the fallacious slippery slope argument that people make against LGBTQ people, making it seem more valid. It's dangerous for children if we accept this. It threatens their innocence and their youth. And given how many paedophiles seem to have been abused in their own youth, surely it seems like a good idea not to accept and to allow this, because it's only going to create a self-perpetuating cycle of abuse. But equally, the hysteria around this cannot be allowed to stand. We can't let those communities get caught in the crossfire. We don't accept psychopaths. We don't accept murder-attracted persons. But we do offer them some sort of compassion. You can plead insanity in court even when you've done something truly heinous, and then you will be put through a program of rehabilitation to try and change that behaviour, to correct whatever it is that's wrong with you. So we show compassion to murderers, even though we wouldn't want it to be LGBTQM. And it's good that these people are out in some ways. It makes them easier to spot and to avoid, and it should ideally allow them to seek help. And that's how we should look at this. This is a cry for help, a way to drive them towards resources to help them get rid of these dangerous desires, rather than driving acceptance, which is only going to drag everyone else down with them. So let's give them compassion, let's give them treatment, let's give them help, but let's keep them away from kids, and let's stop them dragging everyone else down with them. Sang.
In his house in R'lyeh, great Cthulhu lies dreaming, and when he awakens, he shall have the morning wood of aeons. Call of Cthenticle is a deeply pornographic card game. Enjoy your tentacles.